Please, Daddy. Please, we don't have anywhere to go. 12-year-old Hope was on her knees, tears streaming down her face. Her two younger sisters, Grace and Lily, stood behind her crying. Michael stood in the doorway with his arms crossed, looking cold and angry. I said get out, Michael said coldly. I don't want to see your faces anymore. But Daddy, where will we go? Hope begged. 7-year-old Lily ran to her father and hugged his leg. Daddy, please don't send us away. I'll be a good girl, I promise. Michael pushed her away gently but firmly. Grace caught her little sister before she fell. You want to know why? Michael said. Because you're girls. I needed sons to carry my name. But what did your mother give me? 3 daughters. 3 useless girls. The neighbors came out of their houses watching and whispering. We're not useless, Daddy, Hope said bravely. We get good grades. We love you. I don't care. Michael shouted. My friends all have sons. My brother has sons. But me? I only have daughters who will grow up and belong to some other man's family. You're worthless to me. He picked up the suitcases and tossed them onto the porch. Your mother will be home soon. Tell her she can go with you. I'm done with all of you. I'm going to find a new wife who will give me sons. Daddy, please, all 3 girls cried together. But Michael slammed the door shut and locked it. The 3 sisters sat on the porch steps, holding each other and crying as the sun began to set. Hello everyone, welcome to our story. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss our stories. Also, tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Once upon a time in a big city with tall buildings and busy streets, there lived a man named Michael and his wife Sarah. Michael was a successful businessman who owned a small company, and they lived in a nice house with a pretty garden. When Michael and Sarah first got married, they were very happy. Sarah was a kind and gentle woman who always smiled and never said mean things to anyone. She loved Michael with all her heart and wanted to make him happy. Michael seemed to love her too, and for the first few years their life was like a fairy tale. Sarah always dreamed of having children. She would watch other families in the neighborhood and smile at the children playing in the streets. She prayed every night for God to bless her with a baby. After 2 years of marriage, Sarah's prayers were answered. She was going to have a baby. Michael was so excited that he jumped up and down and told everyone the good news. I'm going to be a father, he would say with a big smile. I hope it's a strong, healthy boy who will grow up to take over my business someday. But Sarah just hoped for a healthy baby. Whether it was a boy or a girl, she didn't care. She just wanted her baby to be safe and happy. When Sarah was 9 months pregnant, she went to the hospital. Michael waited outside, walking back and forth nervously. He kept asking the nurses, Is it a boy? Is my son here yet? Finally, the doctor came out with a big smile. Congratulations. You have a beautiful, healthy baby girl. Michael's smile disappeared like a light turning off. A girl? He said quietly. But when he went to see Sarah and their new daughter, his heart melted. The baby was so beautiful with bright eyes and tiny fingers. Look, Michael, Sarah whispered with happy tears in her eyes. Our daughter is perfect. Let's call her Hope. Michael looked at his daughter and felt love fill his heart, even though he had wanted a boy. She is beautiful, he admitted. Maybe the next one will be a boy. 2 years later, Sarah had another baby. Again, Michael hoped for a son. But again it was a girl. They named her Grace. Michael tried to hide his disappointment, but Sarah could see it in his eyes. Don't worry, she told him gently. Grace is healthy and wonderful. We're blessed. Yes, we're blessed, Michael said, but his voice didn't sound happy. But I still need a son. 3 years after Grace was born, Sarah had a third baby. Michael was sure this time it would be a boy. He had prayed every day. He had even visited a fortune teller who promised him it would be a son. But when the doctor said, It's another girl, something inside Michael broke. He barely looked at the baby. He didn't hold her or smile. When Sarah wanted to name her Lily, he just nodded and walked away. From that day on, Michael started to change. He became cold and angry. He would come home from work and ignore his daughters. When Hope wanted to show him her good grades, he would wave her away. When Grace wanted to play with him, he would say he was too busy. When Lily tried to hug him, he would barely hug her back. Sarah noticed the change and it broke her heart. Michael, our daughters love you. Please don't push them away. I wanted sons, Sarah, Michael would say. 3 chances and you gave me 3 girls. Do you know how embarrassing that is? Michael's friends made it worse. When they visited, they would brag about their sons. My boy is going to be a doctor, one would say. My son is already helping me in my shop, another would boast. Michael's own brother would tease him. Still no sons, Michael? What kind of man are you? These words poisoned Michael's heart. Slowly, day by day, he began to see his daughters not as blessings but as failures. Not as his children but as disappointments. Sarah tried to make him see differently. Michael, our daughters are smart and kind and beautiful. Hope reads books all the time. Grace makes everyone laugh. Lily draws the most amazing pictures. Aren't you proud of them? But Michael would just shake his head. They're still just girls. They'll grow up, get married, and leave. My name will die with me. My business will go to strangers. What's the point? As the years passed, Michael's anger grew stronger. He started staying out late. He stopped eating dinner with the family. He would look at his daughters with cold eyes, like they were strangers. The girls noticed. Hope would ask her mother, "Why doesn't Daddy love us anymore?" Sarah would hug her and say, "He does love you, sweetheart. He's just confused right now." But deep down, Sarah knew the truth. Michael had let his desire for a son turn into an obsession. And that obsession was destroying their family. Then one day everything fell apart. Michael came home early from work that day. Sarah had gone to the market to buy food for dinner, and the three girls were home alone doing their homework. When Michael walked through the door, Hope looked up from her math book and smiled. "Hi, Daddy. You're home early today." Michael didn't smile back. He just stared at his three daughters sitting at the table with their books and pencils. Grace noticed her father's strange look. "Daddy, are you okay? Do you want some water?" "Pack your things," Michael said suddenly. The three girls looked at each other, confused. "Pack our things?" Hope asked. "Are we going somewhere? Are we taking a trip?" "No," Michael said firmly. "You're leaving. All three of you. I want you out of this house today." Lily's eyes grew wide with fear. "Leaving? But Daddy, this is our home." "Not anymore," Michael said. He went to the girls' bedroom and pulled out 3 small suitcases from under the bed. He started throwing their clothes into the suitcases without folding them. Hope ran after him. "Daddy, what are you doing? Please stop. You're scaring us." Michael didn't stop. He grabbed their shoes, their school uniforms, and some of their toys and stuffed everything into the suitcases. His movements were fast and angry, like he couldn't wait to be done. Grace started crying. "Daddy, please tell us what we did wrong. We'll fix it. We promise." "You didn't do anything wrong," Michael said as he zipped up the last suitcase. "You were just born girls. That's your only mistake." He dragged the 3 suitcases to the front door and put them outside on the porch. Then he turned to his daughters. "Out. Now." The girls didn't move. They couldn't believe this was really happening. "I said out." Michael shouted so loud that his voice echoed down the street. Lily began to cry. Grace's whole body was shaking. Hope tried to be brave, but tears were falling down her face. "Please, Daddy," Hope begged. "Where will we go? We're just children." "That's not my problem anymore," Michael said. "Your mother will be home soon. She can figure it out. Now get out of my house before I drag you out." The 3 girls had never seen their father like this. His eyes looked scary and mean. They were afraid of what he might do. Slowly, holding hands, they walked to the front door. Hope was in front, Grace in the middle, and Lily at the back, still crying. When they got to the porch, Michael pushed the suitcases toward them. "Take these and wait for your mother out here." "But Daddy," Hope started to say. "I don't want to hear it," Michael shouted. That's when Hope fell to her knees and started begging. That's when Grace tried to apologize for something she didn't do. That's when little Lily ran to hug her father's leg, hoping her love could change his mind. But nothing worked. Michael's heart had turned to stone. He pushed Lily away, ignored Grace's tears, and closed his ears to Hope's begging. And then he slammed the door and locked it. The 3 sisters sat on the porch steps as the sun moved across the sky. People walked past their house and some stopped to stare. The girls could hear the neighbors whispering. "Why are those children sitting outside? Did you hear? Michael kicked them out because they're girls. How terrible. Those poor babies." But nobody came to help. Nobody offered them a place to stay. Everyone just watched and whispered. An hour passed. Then another hour. The girls were getting hungry and thirsty, but they were too afraid to ask for anything. Hope tried to keep her sisters calm. "It's okay. Mama will be home soon. She'll know what to do." "I'm scared," Lily whispered. "Where will we sleep tonight?" "I don't know," Hope admitted. "But we'll stay together. We'll always stay together no matter what." Grace wiped her tears with her sleeve. "Do you think Daddy will change his mind?" Hope looked at the locked door. She thought about how angry their father had been. She thought about how he had looked at them like they were nothing. "No," Hope said quietly. "I don't think he will." Inside the house, Michael walked from room to room. The house felt strange without the sound of his daughter's voices. No one was laughing. No one was singing. No one was asking him questions. He went to the kitchen and made himself tea. He sat at the table alone and drank it in silence. This is better, he told himself. Now I can start fresh. I'll find a new wife and she'll give me sons. Strong, healthy sons who will make me proud. But even as he said these words, he felt a strange emptiness inside. He pushed that feeling away and focused on his dream of having sons. Outside, the sun was setting. The sky turned orange and pink and the air became cooler. Finally, they saw their mother walking down the street. Sarah was carrying heavy shopping bags and she looked tired. But when she saw her 3 daughters sitting on the porch with suitcases, she dropped everything and ran. Hope, Grace, Lily. Sarah's heart was pounding. What happened? Why are you outside? Where is your father? The 3 girls jumped up and ran to their mother. They all hugged her at once, crying and talking at the same time. Daddy kicked us out. He said we have to leave. He doesn't want us anymore because we're girls. Sarah felt like the world was spinning. She looked at the locked door, then at her daughters, then at the suitcases. Stay here, she told the girls. She walked up to the door and knocked hard. Michael, open this door right now. There was no answer. Michael, I know you can hear me. Open this door and explain what's going on. Still no answer. Sarah knocked harder, her fists pounding on the wood. You can't do this. These are your children. Our children. You can't just throw them away. Finally, they heard footsteps. The door opened just a crack. Michael stood there looking at Sarah with cold eyes. Take your daughters and go, he said. I'm done with all of you. Sarah stared at her husband through the crack in the door. She couldn't believe these words were coming from the man she had loved for so many years. Michael, please, Sarah said, her voice shaking. Let's talk about this. Come outside and let's sit down and talk like husband and wife. There's nothing to talk about, Michael said. I've made my decision. I wanted sons and you gave me daughters. 3 times I hoped and 3 times I was disappointed. I'm not waiting anymore. But Michael, our daughters are wonderful. They're smart and kind and... They're girls? Michael shouted. Don't you understand? Girls are useless to me. They'll grow up and get married and belong to other families. My name dies with me. My business will go to strangers. Everything I've worked for will be for nothing. Sarah felt anger rising in her chest. Our daughters are not useless. How can you say such terrible things? They love you. They've done nothing wrong. Their only crime was being born female, Michael said. And that's enough. Now take them and leave. I'm going to find a new wife. A better wife who can give me what I want. A better wife? Sarah's voice cracked. I've been a good wife to you, Michael. I've cooked your meals, cleaned your house, supported your business, and raised your children with love. What more could you want? Sons? Michael said simply. I want sons. Behind Sarah, the 3 girls were listening to everything. Lily started crying again and Hope pulled her close. Sarah took a deep breath. And what if your new wife also has daughters? Will you throw her out too? She won't, Michael said confidently. I'll make sure of it this time. I'll pray harder. I'll do everything right. You can't control whether a baby is a boy or a girl. Sarah said. That's not how it works. I don't care, Michael said. All I know is that I'm tired of living in a house full of females. I'm tired of my friends asking me about my sons when I have none. I'm tired of being embarrassed. So you need to leave. Now. Sarah realized that nothing she said would change his mind. Michael had decided, and he was too proud and stubborn to admit he was wrong. She looked at her 3 daughters sitting on the porch, scared and confused. Then she looked back at Michael one last time. Fine, Sarah said quietly. We'll leave. But I want you to know something, Michael. You're making the biggest mistake of your life. Those 3 girls are the best thing that ever happened to you, and you're too blind to see it. They're the biggest disappointment of my life, Michael said coldly. No, Sarah said, standing up straighter. You're the disappointment. A real man doesn't abandon his children. A real man doesn't choose pride over family. You're no man at all, Michael. You're just a coward. Michael's face turned red with anger. Get out of here before I call the police. We're going, Sarah said. But remember this moment, Michael. Remember the day you threw away your family. Because one day you're going to regret it. She turned and walked back to her daughters. Michael slammed the door shut, and they heard him lock it again. Sarah stood in front of her 3 girls. They looked up at her with frightened eyes, waiting to see what she would do. For a moment, Sarah wanted to cry. She wanted to fall down on the ground and sob. Everything she had worked for, her marriage, her home, her family, had just fallen apart. She had no money saved. She had no family in the city. She didn't know where they would sleep tonight. But then she looked at Hope, Grace, and Lily. They needed her to be strong. They needed her to be brave. So Sarah did something that surprised even herself. She smiled. "Girls," she said, "pick up your suitcases. We're leaving this place." "But Mama, where will we go?" Hope asked. "I don't know yet," Sarah admitted. "But we'll figure it out together. The four of us are a family, and as long as we have each other, we'll be okay." "I'm scared," Lily whispered. Sarah bent down and hugged her youngest daughter. "I know, sweetheart. I'm scared too. But sometimes being brave doesn't mean we're not scared. It means we keep going even when we are scared." She stood up and picked up 2 of the suitcases. Hope picked up the 3rd one. "Hold hands," Sarah said. "Grace, hold Lily's hand. Hope, hold Grace's hand. And I'll lead the way." The 4 of them walked down the street together as the sun disappeared behind the buildings. The neighbors watched from their windows, but Sarah held her head high. She didn't look back at the house. She didn't look back at the life she was leaving behind. She only looked forward. They walked for a long time through the city streets. Sarah's arms were getting tired from carrying the heavy suitcases, but she didn't complain. The girls were tired too, but they kept walking. "Mama, my feet hurt," Lily said after a while. "I know, baby," Sarah said. "We'll rest soon, I promise." As it got darker, Sarah started to worry more. Where would they sleep? She had some money in her purse, but not enough for a hotel. She thought about asking one of her friends for help, but she felt too ashamed. What would she tell them? That her husband had kicked them out for being female? They passed a small park with benches. Sarah thought maybe they could sleep there for one night. But then she saw some dangerous-looking men hanging around, and she quickly led her daughters away. They kept walking until they came to a part of the city where Sarah used to work before she got married. The streets looked familiar, and suddenly she remembered something. Years ago, when Sarah was young and unmarried, she had worked at a small restaurant. The owner was a kind old woman named Mrs. Chin. She had always been nice to Sarah and treated her like a daughter. "I wonder if Mrs. Chin is still alive," Sarah thought. "I wonder if she still lives above her restaurant." Sarah led her daughters down a narrow street until they found the old restaurant. It was still there. The building looked older and the paint was peeling, but the sign still said Chen's Kitchen. The restaurant was closed for the night, but there was a light on upstairs where Mrs. Chin lived. Sarah took a deep breath. "Girls, wait here for just a minute." She went to the side door and knocked gently. After a moment, she heard slow footsteps coming down the stairs. The door opened and there stood Mrs. Chin. She was much older now, with white hair and more wrinkles on her face. But her eyes were still kind and warm. "Yes," Mrs. Chin said. Then she looked closer at Sarah. "Wait, Sarah? Little Sarah who used to work for me? Is that you?" "Yes, Mrs. Chin," Sarah said, and suddenly tears started falling from her eyes. "It's me." Mrs. Chin looked at Sarah's tears and immediately knew something was very wrong. She opened the door wider. "Sarah, what happened? Why are you crying?" Then Mrs. Chin noticed the 3 young girls standing on the sidewalk with suitcases. "And who are these children?" "These are my daughters," Sarah said, wiping her tears. "Hope, Grace, and Lily. Mrs. Chin, I'm so sorry to bother you so late at night. I didn't know where else to go." Mrs. Chin looked at the tired, scared faces of the 3 girls. She looked at the suitcases. She looked at Sarah's red, swollen eyes. She understood immediately. "Come inside, all of you," Mrs. Chin said firmly. "Quickly now before you catch a cold." Sarah called her daughters over and they all went inside. Mrs. Chin led them up the narrow stairs to her small apartment above the restaurant. The apartment was tiny but clean and warm. There was a small living room with an old couch, a tiny kitchen, and 2 bedrooms. Sit down, Mrs. Chin said, pointing to the couch. "You all look exhausted." The 3 girls sat close together on the couch. They were so tired they could barely keep their eyes open. Mrs. Chin went to the kitchen and came back with glasses of water for everyone. "Drink this first. Then I'll make you some food. You must be hungry." "Mrs. Chin, you don't have to," Sarah started to say. "Nonsense," Mrs. Chin interrupted. "I can see you've had a terrible day. You can tell me about it after everyone has eaten." Mrs. Chin went to the kitchen and started cooking. Soon, wonderful smells filled the apartment. She made rice, vegetables, and chicken soup. When the food was ready, she brought it to the table. "Come eat. Don't be shy." The girls hadn't eaten since lunch at school. They were so hungry that they ate quickly, barely stopping to breathe. Sarah tried to eat too, but her throat felt tight. She kept thinking about what had happened. Just this morning she had woken up in her own bed in her own house. Now she was homeless with 3 daughters and nowhere to go. After dinner, Mrs. Chin took the girls to one of the bedrooms. "You can sleep here tonight. The bed is small, but you can all fit if you squeeze together." The girls were so tired that they didn't argue. Hope, Grace, and Lily climbed into the bed, still wearing their clothes. Within minutes, all 3 were fast asleep. Mrs. Chin closed the door quietly and came back to the living room where Sarah was sitting. "Now," Mrs. Chin said, sitting down next to Sarah, "tell me everything." And Sarah did. She told Mrs. Chin about Michael's obsession with having sons. She told her about how he had changed over the years, becoming cold and mean. She told her about coming home to find her daughters sitting on the porch with suitcases. She told her about Michael's cruel words and how he had locked them out. By the time she finished, Sarah was crying again. Mrs. Chin held her hand and let her cry. "That man is a fool," Mrs. Chin said when Sarah was done. "A complete fool. Those 3 girls are beautiful and smart. Any father would be lucky to have them. But Michael doesn't see it that way," Sarah said sadly. "To him they're worthless because they're not boys." Mrs. Chin shook her head. "I've lived a long time, Sarah. And I've learned that people who care too much about things like having sons or having money or having power are never happy. Real happiness comes from love and family." "I don't know what to do now," Sarah admitted. "I have a little money saved but not much. Maybe enough for a few weeks. I need to find a job quickly and a place for us to live. But who will take care of my daughters while I'm working?" "Don't worry about that right now," Mrs. Chin said. "You and your girls can stay here with me for as long as you need." Sarah looked up in surprise. "Mrs. Chin, I couldn't ask you to do that. We've already bothered you enough." "You're not bothering me," Mrs. Chin said with a smile. "This apartment has been too quiet since my husband died 5 years ago. It will be nice to have children's voices here again. Besides, I need help in the restaurant. These old bones can't work as hard as they used to." "You want me to work in the restaurant?" Sarah asked. "Why not?" Mrs. Chin said. "You worked here before. You know how to cook, how to serve customers, how to clean. And the girls can help too when they're not in school. It won't pay much, but it will be enough for food and saving a little money." Sarah felt tears coming again, but this time they were tears of gratitude. "Mrs. Chin, I don't know how to thank you. You're saving our lives." "No need to thank me," Mrs. Chin said, patting Sarah's hand. "We women have to help each other, especially when men act like fools. Now you should get some sleep. Tomorrow is a new day and we have a lot of work to do." That night, Sarah squeezed into the bed with her 3 daughters. The bed was indeed small and they had to sleep very close together. But as Sarah listened to her daughters breathing softly in their sleep, she felt grateful. They were together. They were safe. They had food in their bellies and a roof over their heads. That was enough for now. Sarah thought about Michael, alone in his big house. She wondered if he was thinking about them. She wondered if he felt any regret at all. But then she pushed those thoughts away. Michael had made his choice. Now Sarah had to focus on taking care of her daughters and building a new life for them. "I promise you girls," Sarah whispered in the darkness. "I promise I'll work hard and give you a good life. You deserve the best even if your father can't see that." She kissed each of her sleeping daughters on the forehead and closed her eyes. Tomorrow would be the first day of their new life. The next morning Sarah woke up early. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then she remembered everything and her heart felt heavy. But she didn't let herself stay sad. She quietly got out of bed, being careful not to wake her daughters, and went to the kitchen. Mrs. Chin was already there, preparing vegetables for the restaurant. "Good morning, Sarah," Mrs. Chin said. "Did you sleep well?" "Yes, thank you," Sarah said. "Mrs. Chin, please let me help you. Show me what to do." And so Sarah's new life began. She worked hard in the restaurant every day. She cooked, she cleaned, she served customers with a smile on her face even when her feet hurt and her back ached. The 3 girls went to school during the day. After school they would come to the restaurant and do their homework at a small table in the corner. When they finished their homework they would help too. Hope washed dishes. Grace swept the floor. Even little Lily helped by folding napkins. The customers noticed the hard-working family. They saw how Sarah always had a kind word for everyone. They saw how the 3 daughters were polite and respectful. Some customers started leaving bigger tips. "This is for those sweet girls," they would say. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Life was hard, but the family stayed together and stayed strong. 1 year passed, then 2 years, then 3. The small apartment above Mrs. Chen's restaurant became home for Sarah and her daughters. Every morning, Sarah would wake up before the sun rose. She would make breakfast for her girls and pack their lunches for school. Then she would go downstairs and help Mrs. Chin open the restaurant. The work was hard and tiring. Sarah's hands became rough from washing dishes and cleaning. Her back ached from standing all day. But she never complained. Every night when she counted the money she had saved, she felt proud. Little by little, she was building a better future for her daughters. The 3 girls were growing up. Hope was now 15 years old and the smartest student in her class. She loved science and dreamed of becoming a doctor one day. "Mama," Hope said one evening while doing her homework, "my teacher said if I keep getting good grades, I might get a scholarship to go to university." Sarah's eyes filled with happy tears. "That's wonderful, Hope. I'm so proud of you." "But university costs a lot of money," Hope said, looking worried. "I don't want you to work even harder because of me." Sarah hugged her daughter tight. "Don't you worry about money. You just focus on your studies. We'll find a way to make it work." Grace was 13 now and had become the sunshine of the family. Even though life was hard, she always found reasons to laugh and make jokes. She loved music and would sing while helping in the restaurant. The customers loved her cheerful personality. "Miss Grace, you have the voice of an angel," one old customer said. "You should be a singer when you grow up." Grace just laughed. "Maybe I will. Or maybe I'll be a teacher so I can make learning fun for kids." Little Lily was 10 years old now and she loved to draw and paint. She drew pictures of flowers, birds, and beautiful landscapes. Mrs. Chun put some of Lily's drawings on the walls of the restaurant, and customers often asked if they could buy them. "Your daughter has real talent," a customer told Sarah one day. "These paintings are beautiful." Sarah looked at Lily's artwork with pride. All 3 of her daughters were special in their own way. They were kind, smart, and hardworking. Any parent would be blessed to have them. But somewhere across the city, there was one parent who had thrown them away. Sarah rarely thought about Michael anymore. She was too busy working and raising her daughters. But sometimes late at night, she wondered what had happened to him. Had he found a new wife? Did he get the son he wanted so badly? One day Sarah got her answer. She was at the market buying vegetables for the restaurant when she ran into an old neighbor from her previous life. "Sarah, is that really you?" the woman said. Her name was Janet, and she used to live 3 houses down from Sarah and Michael. "Hello, Janet," Sarah said politely. She wasn't sure she wanted to talk to anyone from her old neighborhood. "I heard about what happened," Janet said, lowering her voice. "About Michael kicking you and the girls out. That was terrible. How are you managing?" "We're doing fine," Sarah said. "The girls are healthy and doing well in school. We're happy." "I'm glad to hear that," Janet said. "You know, I have some news about Michael. He got remarried about 2 years ago. Her name is Rebecca." Sarah felt a strange feeling in her chest, but she wasn't sure if it was sadness or just curiosity. "I hope he's happy," she said quietly. "Well," Janet said, leaning in closer, "Rebecca just had a baby. It's a boy." There it was. Michael had finally gotten his son. Sarah waited for the pain to hit her. She waited to feel jealous or angry or hurt. But surprisingly, she felt nothing. She realized she didn't care anymore. Michael was part of her past and she had moved on. "That's good for him," Sarah said simply. "Now I really must go. I have work to do." As Sarah walked away with her vegetables, she thought about Michael holding his newborn son. She imagined him smiling, finally getting what he had always wanted. "I hope that baby brings you joy, Michael," she thought. "I hope he's worth losing your 3 daughters." Meanwhile, across the city, Michael was indeed holding his baby son. The boy's name was Marcus and he was 3 months old. At first, Michael had been overjoyed. Finally, after all these years, he had a son. He threw a big party and invited all his friends and family. Everyone congratulated him and told him how lucky he was. "Now your name will continue," his brother said, slapping him on the back. "Now you have someone to take over your business," his cousin said. Michael felt proud and vindicated. "See," he thought, "I was right to start over. I was right to want a son." But as the months went by, things started to change. Rebecca, his new wife, was very different from Sarah. She was young and beautiful, but she didn't like to work. She spent money on expensive clothes and jewelry. She hired maids to clean the house and cook the food because she said those jobs were beneath her. "Why should I work in the kitchen like a servant?" Rebecca would say. "You have money. We should enjoy it." Michael's business started having problems. The economy was getting worse and he was making less money. But Rebecca didn't care. She kept spending and spending. "We need to be more careful with money," Michael told her one day. Don't be ridiculous, Rebecca said, waving her hand. You're a successful businessman. We have plenty of money. But they didn't. Michael's savings were shrinking fast. And then there was baby Marcus. Michael had imagined having a son would be wonderful. He had imagined playing sports with him, teaching him about business, and watching him grow into a strong, smart young man. But babies don't do any of those things. Marcus cried all night long. He needed constant attention. He spit up on Michael's expensive clothes. And Rebecca expected Michael to help take care of him. I'm too tired, Rebecca would say when Marcus cried at night. You deal with him. Michael would walk around the house at 3 a.m, holding his screaming son, wondering why this wasn't as wonderful as he had imagined. Sometimes, in those quiet, exhausted moments, Michael would think about his daughters. He wondered where they were. He wondered if Sarah had found a place to live. He wondered if the girls were okay. But then he would push those thoughts away. I have my son now, he would tell himself. This is what I wanted. Everything will be fine. He had no idea how wrong he was. 5 years passed, then 7, then 10. Time moved quickly and the girls were growing into young women. Hope was now 22 years old. She had worked incredibly hard in school, studying late into the night after helping at the restaurant. Her teachers had been amazed by her dedication. When she graduated from high school, she received a full scholarship to study medicine at the university. Mama, I got accepted. Hope had shouted, running into the restaurant with the letter in her hand. They're going to pay for everything, my classes, my books, everything. Sarah had cried tears of joy that day. Her daughter was going to become a doctor. University was difficult. Hope had to study subjects that made her brain hurt. She had to memorize thousands of facts about the human body. She had to stay awake for days during her hospital training. But she never gave up. Now Hope was in her final year of medical school. She was at the top of her class. All the professors said she would make an excellent doctor. Grace was 20 years old and in university studying law. She wanted to become a lawyer so she could help people who were treated unfairly, people like her mother and sisters who had been thrown out with nowhere to go. I'm going to fight for people who can't fight for themselves, Grace told her mother. I'm going to make sure that powerful people can't hurt weak people. Grace was smart and confident. She wasn't afraid to speak up when she saw something wrong. Her professors said she had the perfect personality for a lawyer. Lily was 17 now and finishing high school. Her art had become more and more beautiful over the years. She had won several competitions and a gallery in the city had started selling her paintings. Mama, look. Lily said one day, showing Sarah some money. Someone bought 3 of my paintings. They paid $300 for each one. Sarah couldn't believe it. Her youngest daughter was making money from her art. I want to study business, Lily said. I want to learn how to sell art and maybe open my own gallery one day. I want to help other artists like me. All 3 daughters were succeeding in ways that made Sarah's heart burst with pride. They had taken the pain of being rejected by their father and turned it into motivation to work harder. Mrs. Chin watched the girls grow up and smiled. I told you these girls were special, she said to Sarah. Your husband was a fool to throw them away. Sarah agreed. But she didn't waste time thinking about Michael anymore. She was too busy being proud of her daughters. The restaurant had grown too. With Sarah's hard work and the girls' help, Chen's Kitchen had become one of the most popular restaurants in the neighborhood. They had enough money now to hire 2 more workers. Sarah had saved enough money to rent a small apartment nearby, so they didn't have to crowd into Mrs. Chen's place anymore. It wasn't fancy, but it was theirs. The girls each had their own small bedroom, and Sarah had made it feel warm and cozy. Every night, the family would eat dinner together and talk about their day. Hope would talk about her patients at the hospital. Grace would talk about her law cases. Lily would show them her new artwork. We're so blessed, Sarah would say. We don't have much money, but we have each other. That's what matters most. The girls agreed. They had learned that love and family were more important than anything else. They had learned that hard work and determination could overcome any obstacle. And they had learned that being a girl wasn't a weakness, it was a strength. Meanwhile, Michael's life had become more and more difficult. His son Marcus was now 10 years old, and he was nothing like Michael had imagined. Michael had dreamed of a strong, respectful son who would make him proud. Instead, Marcus was spoiled, rude, and lazy. Rebecca had never disciplined Marcus. She gave him whatever he wanted. If Marcus screamed for candy, she bought him candy. If Marcus refused to do his homework, she let him play video games instead. If Marcus was disrespectful to adults, she just laughed and said, "Boys will be boys." Michael tried to be stricter. "Marcus, you need to study harder. You're failing in school." But Marcus would just roll his eyes. "Leave me alone, Dad. School is boring." "Marcus, you need to show respect to your elders," Michael would say when his son was rude to the neighbors. "Whatever," Marcus would say and walk away. Michael's business had gotten worse and worse. He had made some bad decisions and he had lost a lot of money. He had to sell his nice car and move to a smaller house. Rebecca complained constantly about this. "I didn't marry you to live in a small house," she would shout. "You said you were a successful businessman. You lied to me." "The economy is bad," Michael tried to explain. "Everyone is struggling right now." "Well, fix it," Rebecca demanded. "I want our old life back." But Michael couldn't fix it. He was tired and stressed all the time. He had trouble sleeping. He had gained weight and developed health problems. His hair had turned gray and he looked much older than his age. Sometimes, late at night when he couldn't sleep, Michael would think about his 3 daughters. They would be grown women now. He wondered what they looked like. He wondered what they were doing with their lives. He thought about Hope, who used to love reading books. He thought about Grace, who always made everyone laugh. He thought about little Lily, who used to draw him pictures and ask him to hang them on the refrigerator. A small voice in his head would say, "You made a mistake. You threw away 3 wonderful daughters because you were obsessed with having a son. And look at the son you got. He's spoiled and disrespectful. Was it worth it?" But Michael was too proud to admit he had been wrong. Instead, he would tell himself that things would get better. Marcus would mature. The business would improve. Everything would work out. He had no idea that very soon his daughters would come back into his life in a way he never expected. One evening, Sarah was closing the restaurant when a well-dressed woman walked in. "I'm sorry we're closed," Sarah said politely. "Oh, I'm not here to eat," the woman said with a smile. "My name is Dr. Patricia Moore. I'm from City General Hospital. Are you Sarah?" "Yes, I'm Sarah," Sarah said, confused. "Is something wrong?" "No, nothing's wrong," Dr. Moore said. "I'm here because of your daughter, Hope. She's one of my medical students and she's absolutely brilliant. I wanted to meet the mother who raised such an amazing young woman." Sarah felt her cheeks turn red with pride. "Hope is amazing," she agreed. "She's worked so hard." "Well, I have some wonderful news," Dr. Moore said. "We'd like to offer Hope a position at our hospital after she graduates. It's a very prestigious job and she'll be paid well. She'll be able to help a lot of people." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Really? Oh, that's wonderful. Hope told me about your family's story," Dr. Moore said gently. "About what happened with her father. I want you to know that Hope is one of the strongest, most compassionate people I've ever met. You raised her well." After Dr. Moore left, Sarah sat down and cried happy tears. Her daughter was going to be a doctor at a big hospital. All those years of hard work and sacrifice had been worth it. 2 years later, all 3 daughters had achieved their dreams. Hope graduated from medical school at the top of her class. She became a doctor at City General Hospital, just as Dr. Moore had promised. She specialized in treating sick children, and parents loved her because she was so kind and patient. "Dr. Hope is a miracle worker," one grateful mother said. "She saved my son's life and treated him like he was her own child." Hope worked long hours at the hospital, but she loved her job. Every time she helped a sick child get better, she remembered her own childhood and how hard her mother had worked to take care of her and her sisters. Grace graduated from law school and passed her exams to become a lawyer. She got a job at a law firm that helped poor people who couldn't afford expensive lawyers. "I want to help people like my mother," Grace told her boss on her first day. "People who are treated unfairly and have no one to defend them." Grace won case after case. She helped single mothers who were being cheated by their landlords. She helped workers who weren't being paid fairly. She helped families who were being bullied by powerful people. "Grace is a fighter," people would say. "She never gives up and she always does what's right." Lily had graduated from business school and opened her own art gallery in the city. She sold her own paintings and also helped other young artists sell their work. "I want to give other artists the chance I never had when I was young," Lily said. "I want to show them that they can make a living doing what they love." Lily's gallery became very popular. Rich people from all over the city came to buy art. Lily was making more money than she had ever imagined. The 3 sisters were now successful and respected in the city. But they never forgot where they came from. They never forgot the nights they cried themselves to sleep in Mrs. Chen's small apartment. They never forgot watching their mother work until her hands bled. They never forgot being kicked out by their own father. Every week they would visit their mother and Mrs. Chen at the restaurant. They would bring gifts and sit around the table eating and laughing together. Mama, we've been talking, Hope said one evening. Grace, Lily, and I have saved up our money. We want to buy you a house. Sarah looked up in surprise. What? No, girls, you don't need to do that. I'm happy in my little apartment. But Mama, you deserve better, Grace said. You worked so hard for us all these years. Now it's our turn to take care of you. We already found the perfect house, Lily added excitedly. It has a big garden where you can grow flowers. It has a porch where you can sit and drink tea. And it has enough bedrooms for all of us to visit and stay over. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Girls, I don't know what to say. You've already given me so much joy just by being successful and happy. Please say yes, Mama, Hope said, taking her mother's hand. Let us do this for you. Sarah looked at her 3 daughters, her 3 beautiful, successful, kind daughters. The daughters that Michael had thrown away like garbage. The daughters he had called worthless. Yes, Sarah said, crying and laughing at the same time. Yes, I'll accept your gift. The girls jumped up and hugged their mother. Even Mrs. Chen, who was watching from the kitchen, had tears in her eyes. You see, Mrs. Chen said, I told you those girls were special. I told you everything would work out. 1 month later, Sarah moved into her new house. It was beautiful, not too big, not too small, but perfect. The girls had furnished it with comfortable furniture and filled it with plants and paintings. On moving day, all the neighbors came to help. People from the restaurant came. Dr. Moore from the hospital came. Even some of Grace's clients from the law firm came to help carry boxes. You have a wonderful family, one neighbor said to Sarah. Your daughters are so successful and still so humble and kind. You must be very proud. I am, Sarah said, looking at Hope, Grace, and Lily laughing as they carried boxes into the house. They're the best thing that ever happened to me. That night, after everything was unpacked, the family sat on the front porch together. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. Do you remember when we used to sit on the steps outside our old house? Grace said quietly. The day Dad kicked us out? I remember, Hope said. I was so scared. I didn't know what would happen to us. I remember crying and begging Dad not to make us leave, Lily said. I thought our lives were over. Sarah put her arms around her daughters. But our lives weren't over. They were just beginning. That terrible day was actually the start of something better. Do you ever wonder what happened to Dad? Grace asked. Sarah thought for a moment. Sometimes. But honestly, I've been too busy being grateful for what we have to worry about what we lost. He lost us, Hope said firmly. He threw away 3 daughters who loved him. That was his choice and he has to live with it. Do you think he ever regrets it? Lily wondered. I don't know, Sarah said. But even if he does, it doesn't change anything. We've built a good life without him. We don't need him anymore. The 4 of them sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars come out one by one. What they didn't know was that very soon, they would see Michael again. And when they did, everything would come full circle. Across the city, Michael was having one of the worst days of his life. His business had finally collapsed completely. He owed money to many people and had to declare bankruptcy. The bank was going to take his house because he couldn't pay his mortgage. Rebecca had left him 6 months ago. I didn't sign up for this, she had said as she packed her bags. I married a successful man, not a failure. She had taken Marcus with her and moved to another city to live with her family. At first, Michael had tried to convince Marcus to stay. Son, please. We can work this out together. I'm still your father. But Marcus had just shrugged. Mom says you're a loser now. I want to go with her. Those words had cut Michael deeper than any knife. Now at 62 years old, Michael was alone, broke, and sick. He had developed diabetes from years of stress and poor eating. His blood pressure was dangerously high. He had trouble walking because his knees hurt all the time. He lived in a tiny, cheap apartment now, much smaller than even the apartment where Sarah and the girls had lived with Mrs. Chen. He could barely afford food and medicine. One day, Michael felt so sick that he could barely stand up. His chest hurt and he was sweating even though the room was cold. He knew something was very wrong. With shaking hands, he called for an ambulance. Please, he gasped when the operator answered. I think I'm having a heart attack. Please help me. The ambulance arrived and took Michael to the hospital. As he lay on the stretcher, staring up at the ceiling and feeling the pain in his chest, Michael thought about his life. He thought about how he had thrown away his family because he wanted a son. He thought about Sarah's kind face and how he had treated her so cruelly. He thought about 3 little girls sitting on a porch, crying and begging him not to send them away. I was such a fool, Michael thought as darkness closed in around him. Such a fool. He didn't know it yet, but he was being taken to City General Hospital. The same hospital where his daughter Hope worked as a doctor. Michael woke up in a hospital bed. His chest still hurt, but not as badly as before. There were tubes in his arm and machines beeping around him. A nurse came in and smiled at him. "Good morning, Mr. Thompson. You're awake. That's good. The doctor will be in to see you soon." "What happened?" Michael asked weakly. "You had a mild heart attack," the nurse explained. "But don't worry, you're going to be okay. We caught it in time. Just rest now." After the nurse left, Michael looked around the hospital room. It was clean but plain. Through the window he could see the city skyline. He felt so tired and old. A few minutes later, the door opened and a doctor walked in. She was a young woman wearing a white coat with a stethoscope around her neck. She was looking down at a clipboard as she entered. "Good morning, Mr. Thompson. I'm Dr. Williams and I'll be taking care of you today. Let me check your vital signs and see how you're doing." The doctor came closer to the bed and looked up at Michael for the first time. Both of them froze. Michael stared at the doctor. She had kind eyes and a gentle face. Something about her seemed familiar, but he couldn't quite place it. Hope stared at the patient. She recognized him immediately, even though he looked much older and sicker than she remembered. It was her father. The man who had kicked her and her sisters out onto the street 20 years ago. Hope's heart was beating fast. She felt so many emotions all at once: anger, sadness, shock, and even a little bit of pity. This old, sick man in the bed was her father. Michael was still studying her face. "Have we met before?" he asked. "You look familiar." Hope took a deep breath. She had a choice to make right now. She could tell him who she was. She could shout at him and tell him what a terrible father he had been. She could refuse to treat him and ask another doctor to take over. But Hope was a professional. She was a doctor who had taken an oath to help sick people, no matter who they were. And despite everything her father had done, she was not a cruel person. "No, I don't think we've met," Hope said calmly. "Now let's talk about your heart. You had a mild heart attack, Mr. Thompson. Your arteries are blocked and your heart is weak. You also have diabetes and high blood pressure. Have you been taking care of yourself?" Michael shook his head sadly. "Not really. I've been under a lot of stress. My business failed. My wife left me. My son doesn't talk to me anymore. I'm all alone." Hope felt a strange feeling hearing this. Part of her wanted to say, "Good. Now you know how it feels to be abandoned." But another part of her, the part that her mother had raised to be kind and forgiving, felt sorry for him. "Well, you need to start taking better care of yourself," Hope said in a professional voice. "I'm going to prescribe some medication for your heart and your diabetes. You need to eat better, exercise gently, and reduce stress. Do you have family who can help you?" "No," Michael said quietly. "I have no one." Hope wrote some notes on her clipboard. "I see. Well, we'll keep you here for a few days to monitor your condition. The social worker will come talk to you about support services for when you go home." "Thank you, doctor," Michael said. "You're very kind. What did you say your name was?" Hope paused at the door. She looked back at her father lying in the hospital bed, looking old and broken and alone. "Dr. Williams," she said. Then she left the room. Hope walked quickly down the hospital hallway until she found an empty room. She closed the door behind her and leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Her father. After 20 years, she had just seen her father. He looked so different from how she remembered. He used to be tall and strong and intimidating. Now he looked small and weak and sad. He had aged badly, with gray hair and tired eyes. Hope pulled out her phone and called Grace. "Hello." Grace answered. "Grace, you won't believe what just happened," Hope said, her voice shaking. "I just treated a patient at the hospital. It was Dad. Our father. He's here." There was silence on the other end of the phone. Then Grace said, "Are you serious? Dad is at your hospital?" "Yes. He had a heart attack. He looks terrible, Grace. He's old and sick and alone. He said his business failed and his wife left him and his son doesn't talk to him." "Good," Grace said coldly. "He deserves it. After what he did to us." "I know," Hope interrupted. "I know what he did. But Grace, when I saw him lying there in that hospital bed looking so broken, I actually felt sorry for him." Grace was quiet for a moment. "Did he recognize you?" "No," Hope said. "He asked if we had met before, but he didn't recognize me. I didn't tell him who I was." "Are you going to tell him?" Grace asked. "I don't know," Hope admitted. "Part of me wants to tell him. I want to see his face when he realizes that the daughter he threw away is now the doctor saving his life. But another part of me thinks, what's the point? It won't change anything. What does your heart tell you to do? Grace asked gently. Hope thought about her mother, who had taught them to be kind even to people who hurt them. She thought about all the years of hard work and struggle. She thought about how far they had come. I think, Hope said slowly, I should just do my job. I should treat him like any other patient and give him the best care I can. Not because he deserves it as a father, but because every human being deserves good medical care. That's very mature of you, Grace said. But Hope, you need to tell Mom and Lily. They deserve to know. You're right, Hope agreed. I'll call them after my shift. Can you come to Mom's house tonight? We should all talk about this together. Of course, Grace said. I'll be there. That evening, all three daughters sat in Sarah's living room. Sarah made tea for everyone and sat down to listen. Mom, Hope began, something happened at work today. I treated a patient who came in with a heart attack. She paused. It was Dad. Michael. Sarah's teacup froze halfway to her mouth. Michael? Your father? Yes, Hope said. He didn't recognize me. He's in bad shape, Mom. He looks old and sick. He told me his business failed, his wife left him, and his son doesn't speak to him anymore. He's completely alone. Sarah set down her teacup carefully. She was quiet for a long time. Lily spoke up. What are you going to do, Hope? Are you going to tell him who you are? I don't know, Hope said. What do you all think I should do? Grace crossed her arms. Personally, I think he deserves to know. He threw us away like we were nothing. Now one of those worthless daughters is the doctor keeping him alive. That's called karma. But what would be the point of telling him? Lily asked quietly. Would it make us feel better? Or would we just be trying to hurt him the way he hurt us? Sarah looked at her three daughters. They had grown into such wise, thoughtful women. Even though they had every right to be angry and bitter, they were discussing this calmly and carefully. Girls, Sarah said softly, I need to tell you something. When your father kicked us out, I was so angry and hurt. For years, I dreamed about the day when he would realize what he had lost. I imagined him coming to us, begging for forgiveness, and me having the power to reject him the way he rejected us. The girls listened carefully. But as time went on, Sarah continued, I realized something important. Holding on to anger and wanting revenge, it's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick. It hurts us more than it hurts them. So you're saying we should just forgive him? Grace asked. After everything he did? I'm not saying you have to forgive him, Sarah said. Forgiveness is a personal choice and each of you has to make that choice for yourself. What I'm saying is that you shouldn't let him have power over you anymore. Don't let his actions 20 years ago control how you act today. Hope nodded slowly. You're right, Mom. I became a doctor to help people, not to get revenge. If I tell Dad who I am just to make him feel bad, then I'm no better than he was. But it's not just about revenge, Grace argued. Don't you think he should know? Don't you think he should see what amazing women we became, despite what he did to us? Maybe, Hope said. But if we tell him, it should be for the right reasons. Not to hurt him, but because, I don't know, because it's the truth and the truth matters. Lily had been quiet, but now she spoke up. I think we should help him, but he doesn't need to know who we are. Everyone turned to look at her. What do you mean? Hope asked. Well, Lily said, if we tell him who we are, it becomes about us and him in the past. But if we just help him because it's the right thing to do without him knowing, then it's about being good people. We help him because we're better than he was, not because we want him to know we're better. Sarah smiled at her youngest daughter. That's very wise, Lily. Grace thought about this. So you're saying Hope should treat him as a doctor, and we should help make sure he has what he needs, but we don't tell him who we are? Exactly, Lily said. That way we get to be the heroes of our own story. We don't need his approval or his regret or his apology. We just need to know that we did the right thing. Hope felt something shift inside her heart. Lily was right. This wasn't about Michael anymore. This was about who they chose to be. Okay, Hope said. I'll continue treating him as my patient. I'll give him the best care I can. But I won't tell him who I am. And I can make sure his medical bills are paid, Grace offered. I have connections at the hospital. I can arrange it anonymously through a charity fund. I can have some groceries and supplies delivered to his apartment when he's discharged, Lily added. He'll never know where they came from. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I'm so proud of you girls. You've taken all the pain and hurt from your childhood and turned it into compassion. That's true strength. The four women hugged each other tightly. Dad made his choice 20 years ago, Hope said. Now we're making ours. And our choice is to be kind even when it's hard. The next day, Hope returned to the hospital. She checked on Michael several times throughout the day, monitoring his heart and adjusting his medications. Michael was polite and grateful. "Thank you, doctor. You've been so kind to me. I don't know what I would have done without you." "It's my job," Hope said simply. "How are you feeling today?" "Better physically," Michael said. "But I've been lying here thinking about my life. I've made so many mistakes." He looked at Hope with sad eyes. "Can I tell you something, doctor?" "Of course," Hope said, sitting down in the chair next to his bed. 20 years ago, I had a wife and 3 daughters," Michael began. "But I was obsessed with having a son. I thought daughters were worthless. So I kicked them out, my wife and all 3 of my little girls. I threw them away like they were garbage." Hope's heart was beating fast, but she kept her face calm and professional. "I remarried and finally got a son," Michael continued. "I thought that would make me happy. But my son turned out to be spoiled and disrespectful. My second wife only cared about money. And when my business failed, they both left me." He wiped tears from his eyes. "Now I'm old and sick and alone, and I realize that I threw away the only people who ever truly loved me." "Why are you telling me this?" Hope asked quietly. "Because you've been so kind to me," Michael said. "And it made me think about my daughters. They would be about your age now. I wonder if they turned out to be kind like you. I wonder if they ever think about me. I wonder if they hate me." Hope felt tears trying to form in her eyes, but she blinked them away. "Do you regret what you did?" "Every single day," Michael said, his voice breaking. "But it's too late now. I can never take back what I did. I can never find them and apologize. I destroyed my family because I was stupid and proud and foolish." Hope stood up. "Mr. Thompson, the past is the past. You can't change it. But you can choose how you live the rest of your life. You can choose to be better." "But I'm alone," Michael said. "I have no one." "You have yourself," Hope said. "And sometimes that's where you have to start. Now, I need to check on my other patients. I'll be back to see you this evening." As Hope walked out of the room, she felt a strange mixture of emotions. She felt sad for the broken old man her father had become. She felt angry at him for wasting so many years on foolish pride. But most of all, she felt grateful. Grateful that she and her sisters had their mother, grateful that they had each other, and grateful that they had become good people despite their father's rejection. 3 days later, Michael was ready to be discharged from the hospital. Hope came in with his discharge papers. "You're doing much better, Mr. Thompson," she said. "Your heart is stable and your blood pressure is under control. But you need to take your medication every day and come back for follow-up appointments." "I will," Michael promised. "Thank you so much, Dr. Williams. You saved my life." "Just doing my job," Hope said with a small smile. The social worker came in. "Mr. Thompson, I have some good news. An anonymous donor has paid all your medical bills. You don't owe anything." Michael looked shocked. "What? But, who would do that?" The social worker shrugged. "I don't know. The donation came through a charity fund. Someone must have wanted to help you." Michael looked at Hope. "Was it you, doctor?" "It wasn't me," Hope said honestly. "But there are good people in this world who help others, even when they don't have to." After Michael was discharged, Hope watched from the hospital window as he got into a taxi. He looked so small and frail as the car drove away. "Goodbye, Dad," Hope whispered. "I hope you find peace." Michael returned to his small apartment. When he opened the door, he was surprised to find several boxes sitting in his living room. There were bags of groceries, rice, vegetables, canned goods, bread. There were cleaning supplies. There was even a warm blanket and some new clothes in his size. A note was attached to one of the boxes. It read, "Everyone deserves a second chance. Take care of yourself." Michael sat down on his old couch and cried. He didn't know who had sent these things, but their kindness touched his heart in a way nothing had in years. Over the next few weeks, Michael started to change. He took his medications every day. He ate better. He went for short walks in the park. He started to take care of himself. But more importantly, he started to think differently. Every night, he would sit alone in his apartment and think about his life. He thought about Sarah's kind face and how patient she had been with him. He thought about Hope's love of reading, Grace's beautiful laugh, and Lily's colorful drawings. "I had everything," he would whisper to himself, "and I threw it all away for nothing." He began volunteering at a community center, helping serve food to homeless people. When he saw fathers with their daughters there, his heart would ache. One day, a young father was yelling at his little girl because she had spilled her juice. "You're so clumsy. Why can't you do anything right?" Michael walked over to the man. "Excuse me, but can I give you some advice?" The young father looked annoyed. "What?" "Love your daughter while you can," Michael said quietly. "Don't take her for granted. Don't criticize her for small mistakes. One day you'll wake up and realize she's gone, and you'll wish you could get back every moment you wasted being angry." The young father looked at Michael's sad, sincere face and softened. "You're right. I'm sorry." He picked up his daughter and hugged her. "Daddy's sorry for yelling, sweetie." Michael walked away with tears in his eyes. At least he could help someone else avoid the mistakes he had made. 5 years passed. Michael was now 67 years old. His health was stable, thanks to Dr. Williams and the medication she had prescribed. He still lived in his small apartment, but he had made peace with his simple life. He never remarried. He never saw his son Marcus again. Rebecca had made sure of that. But Michael had found a different kind of peace. The peace that comes from accepting responsibility for your mistakes and trying to be a better person. He still volunteered at the community center. He still thought about his daughters every single day. And every year on their birthdays he would light a candle and say a prayer for them wherever they were. "Hope, Grace, Lily," he would whisper. "I hope you're happy. I hope you found love and success. I hope you became the amazing women I know you could be. And I hope that someday somehow you can forgive me." But Michael never tried to find them. He felt he had no right to disturb their lives after what he had done. The best gift he could give them was to leave them alone. What Michael didn't know was that his daughters knew exactly where he was. Hope still worked at City General Hospital and had become one of the most respected doctors in the city. Whenever Michael came in for his follow-up appointments, she made sure he was well taken care of, though she always arranged for another doctor to see him. She would watch from a distance, making sure he was okay. Grace had used her legal connections to ensure that Michael's rent was always paid. Whenever his landlord tried to evict him, mysterious payments would appear, and Grace would send a lawyer to protect his rights. Michael never knew. Lily made sure that groceries and supplies appeared at his door regularly. Sometimes she would even slip in a book or a warm scarf for winter. Michael thought it was from the community center or some charity. He never suspected it was from his daughter. The 3 sisters never told their father who they were. They had made their choice years ago, to help him because it was right, not because they wanted anything from him. Sarah was now 70 years old and living comfortably in the house her daughters had bought for her. She spent her days gardening, reading, and visiting with her daughters and grandchildren. Yes, grandchildren. Hope had married a kind doctor and had 2 children. Grace had married a teacher and had 1 daughter. Lily had married an artist and had twin boys. Sarah's house was always full of love and laughter. Every Sunday the whole family would gather for dinner. The children would run around the garden, and the adults would sit on the porch, talking and enjoying each other's company. Sometimes Sarah would think about Michael. She wondered if he was still alive. She wondered if he ever thought about the family he had thrown away. But mostly Sarah felt grateful. Grateful for her 3 wonderful daughters. Grateful for her beautiful grandchildren. Grateful for the life she had built from nothing. "You know what the funny thing is?" Sarah said to her daughters one Sunday evening. They were sitting on the porch watching the sunset just like they used to years ago. "What's that, Mom?" Hope asked. "Your father wanted sons to carry on his name and take over his business," Sarah said. "But he lost his business anyway. His name died with him. No grandchildren to carry it on, because his son wants nothing to do with him. Meanwhile," Grace added, "we gave you 5 grandchildren who love you and respect you. And we all have successful careers," Lily said. "We've probably done more with our lives than Dad ever did with his." "The irony is beautiful," Hope said with a sad smile. "Dad threw us away because we were girls. But we're the ones who succeeded. We're the ones who built something meaningful. We're the ones who became everything he wanted in a child, just not in the package he expected." Sarah nodded. "That's the lesson, girls. It was never about being a boy or a girl. It was about love, hard work, character, and kindness. Your father never understood that. But you 3 do." The 4 women sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun paint the sky with beautiful colors. "Do you think Dad knows?" Lily asked quietly. "Do you think he ever found out that we're the ones who've been helping him all these years?" "No," Hope said. "And I don't think we should ever tell him." "Why not?" Grace asked. "Don't you think he deserves to know?" "Maybe," Hope said. "But this isn't about what he deserves. It's about who we are. We chose to help him not because we wanted his gratitude or his regret. We helped him because Mom raised us to be good people. That's enough for me." Sarah smiled and hugged her daughters. "I'm so proud of all 3 of you. You took the worst thing that ever happened to us and turned it into strength. That's true victory. 2 years later, Michael passed away peacefully in his sleep. He was 69 years old. When the hospital called Hope to inform her, she was listed as his emergency contact, though Michael never knew. She felt a strange emptiness. Her father was gone. The man who had given her life but then thrown it away. The man who had caused her so much pain but also, in a strange way, had made her stronger. Hope, Grace, and Lily arranged a small funeral for their father. They didn't attend themselves, but they made sure he was buried with dignity in a peaceful cemetery. They placed a simple headstone that read, Michael Thompson, father, husband, son. May he find the peace he could not find in life. After the funeral, the three sisters stood at a distance, watching the workers lower the casket into the ground. Is it wrong that I don't feel sad? Grace asked. No, Hope said. We mourned the loss of our father 20 years ago when he kicked us out. This is just the end of a story. Do you think he's in heaven? Lily wondered. Do you think he's found peace? I hope so, Hope said. Despite everything, I don't wish him eternal suffering. I hope he understands now what he couldn't understand in life. They stood there for a few more moments, then turned and walked away. What do we tell Mom? Grace asked. The truth, Hope said. That our father is gone, and we made sure he was taken care of until the end. And the kids? Lily asked. Do we tell them about their grandfather? Hope thought about this. Someday when they're older, we'll tell them the whole story. We'll tell them about how their grandfather made a terrible mistake. But we'll also tell them how we chose kindness over revenge. That's the lesson they need to learn. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you've learned. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video.